Welcome to a new live session with Cbit Media. I have a guest. Hi,
Nice to see you
Simon.
again, Martin. Always happy to do videos for our friends at Seabird Media.
But it's been the first time that you're in our office in Wiesbaden in Germany to do that. Thank you so much. And actually, it wasn't planned that we're recording this video, so thank you.
It's never planned.
We had some planned gigs. But you may refer to them. We'll put links down there.
That's true. Yeah, we've done previous ones in the past.
Yeah. So if you want to have the deep dive Comalatech Workflows feature thing, then there's another video with Simon and me showing that.
Yes.
Yesterday, when you arrived in Germany, we were having dinner together, and you were telling me that Comalatech has launched a set of new apps on the marketplace, which I somehow didn't know back then.
Yes.
So I thought it would be helpful to record this video to make sure that our customers don't miss out on that.
Exactly. I have to talk to our marketing team when I get back, because obviously.
I don't think that you should organize your marketing around my ignorance. But what's new? So what was it that people shouldn't miss out on?
So we've actually been very busy the last probably 9, almost 12 months. We realized two big things. First of all, most of the people know Comalatech for our Workflows product. We focused on our Workflows server product for 12 years.
Yeah.
One of the big things actually that was released as part of that we've been building the last year or so was the ability to design custom workflows using a visual design tool. So one of the things we'd found with our original product was we had a markup language that you could build all of your tools in, very powerful, very
like
flexible,
a scripting language,
right? Which most people can figure out, but as you know, probably I'm not a developer. Scripting languages can be tricky. So I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could have a tool that was designed in a visual manner, very much like.
So it's not such a steep learning curve now. You can easily configure your workflows visually now.
Anyone can build a workflow, even me. So I use the Workflows Builder all the time. So we've built that in as a new way of being able to develop. It's gives you all 90% of the function of the markup language to be able to just go in and build visually any type of workflow that you need.
But you can still use the markup language.
The markup language is still there. A lot of our customers, existing ones, are very comfortable with it. They like to be able to go in and use the.
Is it downward compatible? Like if I'm using Comala Workflows for years, can I upgrade safely?
Yes. Yep. So all of the markup is still interpreted by the Workflows Builder. So if you build a workflow in the builder, you can open it up in the markup. So they're both backwards, forwards compatible. So it's just created a much easier way for new customers or even existing customers, people like me that have been using the tool. I want to build a workflow very quickly. I want to visualize it. I'm more of a visual person. I can go in and I can very quickly put together a really nice workflow with lots of functionality. So we've built that in. So that was one of the pieces with.
And you told me yesterday that you're working with that all the time now.
I use it all the time because like I said, I'm not a developer. The markup language, I understood how to use it, but for me, the visual tool is just 100 times easier. So that was a big step forward for us, was just being able to. That would have been something people had been asking for years, because that was probably the biggest obstacle new customers complained about when they first started using the tool. It's also a huge source of support tickets for us. So a lot of our tickets are, how do I build this?
Let's explain this a little for people who are new to the ecosystem. Like Comala Workflows is one of the widely used apps for Confluence at large, I would say. And you're adding a workflow feature that will allow me to put Confluence pages or spaces under a more rigid control, where I can say, okay, everyone can still edit, but I want to make sure that someone reviews the edit before it becomes live for every employee or for my website or something.
Having a proper review and approval process. A good analogy, most people we work with are familiar with Jira workflows, and I still use that. It's like a Jira workflow that you've built rather than for your issue lifecycle. It's for your page lifecycle.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's very similar. So it's very powerful. And then the builder, of course, lets you build whatever type of lifecycle management you need. So I
Okay,
know
so you built a new visual workflow builder into Comala Workflows.
exactly.
So if you're a customer like me and you have built out your workflows and used them for years, this may be a good place or time to check out the new features. Maybe you can up your workflow or create a new one or have something else, and the versatility and combined with the ease of joining this configuration thing
Yep.
is probably something that's worthwhile.
One of the things we found too is it's allowed businesses to open up who's involved. Before, because it was a markup language, there was typically only a few people that had the skills to go in and build these workflows. So it somewhat limited their use, we think.
Hmm.
Now, people on the business side that are actually building these documents,
They can do it
they can actually
themselves.
go in and say,
Yeah.
well, you know what, I need a workflow because you can do it at a space level or at an instance level. So we're actually having more business people, marketing people getting involved and like, well, I really could use a workflow that did this. Before I would have had to have asked this person or whatever that knew how to write the markup language. Now they can just go in and do it themselves.
And there's two more things that you introduced to the marketplace.
Yes. So another big step forward for us was workflow, as I mentioned, very powerful, very flexible. It's a very sophisticated tool, but we realized that a lot of our customers didn't have as robust or complex needs, or they were starting off with a lot of people probably familiar with this scenario where they've started using Confluence just for very basic documentation, like a wiki. So they're building some documentation, they're keeping notes, maybe meeting minutes, but then they say, this is a great documentations tool, but I need to be able to have some way of approving my documents. I don't need the full version of workflows. It's too expensive. It has a lot of functionality that I don't need. So at the end of last year, we introduced the Workflows family of products. So this has basically allowed us to bring a lower cost versions of workflows to the marketplace with a subset of the features. So we have workflows approvals, very basic approval, just basic page approval. I need to assign someone to review this page for me. And
Hmm.
it's available not only on server, but in the cloud. So you can have that in both flavors. We also introduced Workflows Lite. So I need a little bit more than just basic approvals. That comes with 3 built-in workflows that covers a variety of different workflow scenarios. Gives you a little bit more configuration control. Again, available server and cloud. So we have 2 entry-level options. Approvals is a quarter of the price of workflows. Workflows
Hmm.
Lite is half the price of workflows. So this is also allowing people to decide whether I need this approval type functionality. And in a lot of cases, we've been finding that they start off with one, and then they realize this gives them much more use of Confluence. All of a sudden, this is an actual powerful document control system, and I have the mechanisms in place to have proper review right up into compliance type stuff. So they might start off with approvals and end up, you know what, Lite actually gives me what I need. They might start off with Lite. So it just allows them an entry point that's much more cost effective, gives them this approval functionality in Confluence, and then again, Lite and approvals in both server and cloud. So it just opens up a bigger opportunity for people that they think maybe they needed it, but the full-blown workflows version, more than they needed, more than they wanted to spend. Now we have 2 other options that they can cover
Mm.
depending on the functionality that they need.
I like that a lot because I think that the Atlassian ecosystem at large is so attractive to a lot of customers because it gives a lot of power into their hands. So they the power of making decisions is also a burden. Like sometimes it's better if you can't choose, you just pick the one thing and then that's it. But being able to say, okay, my needs are this and my budget is that, and having a lighter entry point is, in my opinion, something that is helping a lot with making sure that Confluence at your organization can be adopted, because it's also like with Agile Hive in the beginning when we started that, it's a safe um, supporting solution for Jira. And in the beginning, I thought, oh, this whole safe thing is it's a fad. It's disguising the need for big companies to become agile. And now they get some waterfallish tool set to not make the leap to become a truly agile company.
Yeah.
So how about jumping right now? And then I realized that those tools that help you to do baby steps
Yep.
are actually pretty helpful. And you're doing the very same thing for workflows. You don't have to jump into the full complexity of having like different spaces with different workflows, different pages that can be then assigned multiple tasks for advancing the workflow state to the next and so on. Um, do you see the market picking that up, or is it just like a um, an option that looks nice but no one uses that?
Yeah, no, actually, it's again because we know how much workflows brings to Confluence because it's been around for so long. But what this allows us to do is because again, you guys probably see this Seabrook Media as a big distributor of the Atlassian stack. So the tools are so powerful, Confluence and Jira, even on their own. But in a lot of cases, just getting Confluence into your organization can be a budgetary challenge, right? But the beauty of Atlassian Stack is they have this rich marketplace. But the problem with any marketplace is it's always an add-on cost. It's
Mm-hmm.
always an additional one. So what we found is that people will not fully utilize or actualize the power of Confluence because they're worried about the additional costs of these apps.
Coming back
So
to that, like I'm seeing a lot of people saying, "Oh, I
you can
love
do
the
this. You can
freedom
do
and the
this. Yep. Yeah.
transparency," but actually, it is incompatible with our culture. I
Yeah.
need the approvals.
Yep.
I need the
Exactly.
workflow to make sure that our managers feel safe in
Yep.
that environment.
Exactly.
And maybe we can make the workflows easier or lighter or get
Less
rid of them,
expensive. Yep. Exactly.
get rid of them altogether. But at this point, we need approvals.
Yep. And that's the whole reason why we did it. We wanted people to have an easy way to say we can make Confluence this much better without a huge investment.
Just some technical or business technical questions. If I buy Komala workflows, like the big one, I don't need the other two, right?
No.
Okay.
So
If I
approvals and light are essentially subsets of the main product.
and is then approvals a subset of light? So
Yes.
okay, so it doesn't make sense to buy approvals and light, only light if
Exactly. So they're
and
basically derivatives of
yeah.
those.
And my understanding is approvals is just a very basic 4i principle approval thing.
Yep.
While Lite has 3 different workflows, including this approval thing.
Yes. Exactly.
And the big workflows app will allow me to freely configure whatever I want in whatever manner that Comalatech ever invented.
Exactly.
Okay. If I now buy one solution and I want to upgrade to the next, there is no easy way in the marketplace to do that. So actually, you buy the new one again and you ditch the other or deactivate the plugin.
Yeah.
Do you offer any financial help to customers wanting to do these upgrades, or is it priced the way that they?
Well, we've tried to price it in an effective way that it's not. It's much more affordable anyway. Atlassian does provide. So, say you had approvals and you said, "Well, I really want to move to Light." They provide a credit
okay,
if you
so
have a year, whatever. So Atlassian actually provides that. Although we have, in some cases, made it.
So you allow them to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and we'll say, hey, you know what? I really need to move from Light to Workflows. We will try to make that transition as easy as possible. The other nice thing about it is they're all built on the same core. So what's underneath
it's all compatible
it's all
then.
compatible.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not 3 different unique products.
So I don't have any extra work to
Exactly.
if I upgrade.
It's not a completely different. Obviously, server and cloud have a different infrastructure, but the engine behind them is all the same.
Yeah.
So it makes it very easy.
At this point, that's not that interesting for us here. Is cloud doesn't have a big adoption in Germany yet. Okay, so if there's a customer out there watching this, they could come to Seabit Media, they could buy the approvals option. Then after 3 months, they could find out, okay, Light is better because I want the other 2 workflows. They could get a credit for the other stuff. And then later they could upgrade to workflows. That's awesome.
Yeah, Atlassian provides that through the marketplace for any app.
So just not to confuse this. This is not an option to save money. If you find out that you actually need a versatile solution where you can configure workflows, it's definitely the best just to buy the more expensive plugin and not get the hassle of upgrading. But for example, if you know this is going to take a long time, like years to progress, then it could be that you just save by not having the burden of higher license costs in the beginning.
Exactly.
And I like a lot that, for example, for Linchpin, people can now just add this. And in the very early days, we had Comala workflows as a standard part um, of Linchpin. One challenge was exactly that. Like, as this was a bundle of 15 different apps,
Yep.
the contribution to the budget of workflows was significant. So we
Exactly.
found out that it's kind of smarter for customers to find out whether they actually need that. For example, if you're planning to do a quality management handbook,
Yep.
or product documentation, or anything that will have a kind of official state that you need for auditing, for giving it to customers and those things, it's probably very highly recommended to think of a workflow, a tool. And then the question is, do you just want to have this as a lightweight way of making sure that you have some sort of workflow, or is it a very bespoke, this person has to do that, and if they are not available, then please ask this person, and if they don't react after, I saw Rita do very versatile plausibility checks on, for example, if people don't react, like new people would be involved, and it would escalate, and like if you're thinking of such like complex workflows, then probably the current solution is best. And I also like that you made it easier for people to use that visually now.
Yep.
Um, can you point out 2 or 3 things that you can't do with the visual builder today, where you still recommend to use the markup language?
The only thing that it doesn't support in full visual editing is triggers. So we have triggers for the more complex workflows. A lot of customers will never use them. The triggers are for the more complex ones. You can still build them through the workflow, but it's handled with markup. So there's essentially, you'll go
Okay.
into the
So you're
builder
copying
and
that
you can
in.
add a trigger, but instead of, and then it basically gives you an option to put the trigger in. So what I often do, a little cheat fact, is I just copy and paste from our documentation and I drop it into the builder. So you can still add the triggers in the builder, but it's just done through a small piece of markup.
So to finish, what is a trigger? Is it
So the
like,
trigger is basically if you want a specific action to occur when something else happens. So you might say a very common one is a state change trigger. When this state changes to this, send an email to this person. So it's just a macro. So it's basically allowing you to perform an action when a specific event has occurred.
so
So
real-time example? I have an approved state of a page. Now some employee comes, changes the page. I want to notify the author or the approver that there's a new version now that
exactly.
needs review.
Yep. So it can be that. It could be people use them for adding labels to pages. Hey, it's reached this state. Add this label to this page. So there's quite a few things you can do with triggers. A lot of that stuff is actually can be built in other ways, but a lot of people still like to use triggers. Just depends on what you need. But again, that's probably the only thing that you still have to include markup, but you can still do it through the visual design tool. So you can still build everything else, create all your states, create all the transitions, all the different core bits that you need. And then if you do want to add a trigger, very easy to find. I want it in this state, drop it in the box. It's ready to go.
Simon,
that's the only thing.
thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Martin.